Good evening, everybody. Ms. Warwick, are we ready to start or are we waiting for more people?
We are ready to start.
Okay. I guess I'm the one getting to run this show tonight. So I'll call the Board of Adjustments and Appeals meeting to order. Ms. Warwick, if you could take roll, please.
Ms. Schmitz,
I'm here.
Mr. Rieger,
Present.
Ms. Hoffman, Mr. Thompson,
Present.
Mr. Taylor,
Present.
Mr. Friesen,
Present.
Chair Finn. We have 5, so we do have a quorum.
Okay. Our first agenda would be approval of minutes from June 8th, 2022, which were attached to our packet. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Thank you. Did we have a second? I didn't hear it.
Yeah, second.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? I guess not. All right. Then we'll move to approval of findings of facts for case VAR 2022-002 at 4475 South Broadway. I would entertain a motion to approve that.
I'll move to approve the findings of fact for case VAR 2022-002 for 4475 South Broadway.
Okay, I will second that.
Thank you. So I will open the, let's see, I guess for case procedure, there are 5 members present, so 4 votes are required. The board is authorized to grant or deny a variance by Part 3, Section 60 of the Englewood City Charter. Anyone aggrieved by the decision rendered by this board may appeal that decision to a court of record. However, such an appeal must be made within 30 days of the board's decision. Any approved variance is effective at the end of the appeal period. Building permits for construction associated with approved variance will not be issued until the appeal period is ended. And building permits must be obtained and construction begun within 365 days of variance's effective date. Procedure for the meeting is that the case will be introduced. We'll get an overview given by the staff. The applicant will be given an opportunity to present their request and the reasons for the variance. And proponents will be given an opportunity to speak, and opponents will address the board. Then if needed, the staff will address the board again. And with that, I will open the public hearing for, if I get the right page, case VAR 2022-006, applicant Tiffani Willis for property at 4300 South Huron Street. The variance is requesting a 6-month waiver from the requirement that a short-term rental be owner occupied in an R1C zone district. With that, if we could have the staff talk to us about this, that would be great.
Sure. Evening, everybody.
Eric, if you can raise your hand, I'll swear you
Oh
in.
yeah, I gotta do the swearing in thing.
Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that you will tell the truth in this proceeding before the Board of Adjustment and Appeals?
I do.
Please state your name.
Eric Sampson, Planner 2 with Community Development.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everybody. So the background on this waiver request was community development staff received a complaint in early July that Ms. Willis, who does currently have a permit, a short-term rental permit for the property at 4300 South Huron Street, was operating the STR without having that primary residency status. So staff reached out to Ms. Willis and she confirmed that she was not currently living on site due to having recently broken her ankle, and that further surgery would be needed before she would be able to move back into the address at 4300 South Huron. So I gave her a couple options to remedy the current situation, and she chose to apply for the variance waiver request. Short-term rental waivers may be granted when the Board of Adjustment and Appeals determines, based on representations in the application and at the public hearing, that the following 3 criteria are met. The first criteria is that special circumstances or conditions peculiar to the specific short-term rental or property owner exist that do not apply generally to all short-term rental businesses or enterprises. And due to Ms. Willis's injury, staff believes that this constitutes a special circumstance for the waiver request. The second criteria is that the requested waiver will not weaken the general purposes of the Title V, Chapter 31, which is our short-term rental regulations. And due to the fact that Ms. Willis is only asking for a 6-month waiver and not a permanent waiver, staff does not believe the circumstance weakens the general purpose or intent of the STR regulations. And finally, the third criterion is how the property owner will provide an alternative effective means of assuring the goals of the regulations sought to be waived will be upheld, and neither the short-term rental waiver nor the alternate means of assuring regulatory compliance will alter the essential character in the district in which the short-term rental is located. A lot of words. The waiver request is again, since the waiver request is temporary in nature and the owner plans to comply with the primary residency requirement after her medical treatment is completed, staff does not believe that there will be a significant impact to regulatory compliance or alter the essential character of the R1C zone district. So the community development recommendation is the approval of the 6-month waiver request with the explicit condition that Ms. Willis return to 4300 South Huron Street as her primary residence prior to the waiver expiration date. If Ms. Willis does not return to her primary residence after the 6-month waiver has expired, this will constitute an STR of, excuse me, a violation of the STR codes, and she will need to remove her STR listing from all booking service provider websites or block off her calendar for stays less than 30 days. Anything less than 30 days is considered short-term rental.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions, Mr. Sampson, at this point? If not, we may call you back after hearing from other people, but we'll move on. Could the applicant come forward and be sworn in and tell us a little bit more about this?
Ms. Willis, if you could please raise your right hand and I'll swear you in. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that you will tell the truth in this proceeding before the Board of Adjustment and Appeals?
Yes.
Please state your name and address.
Tiffani Willis, 4300 South Huron Street in Inglewood.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have read your initial letter to the staff. Do you have things that you'd like to tell us more about, or?
I think I provided all of the documents to Eric for this. I just need another surgery. I have hardware that needs to be taken out. So I just wanted to make sure everything was on the up and up for that upcoming surgery.
Okay. Appreciate that. Do we have questions for the applicant?
Oh, I didn't see anything about why the injury requires you to live elsewhere.
It's my right foot, so I can't like get to doctor's appointments. on my own. I can't drive. So I was living with a family member. And the initial injury was pretty gross.
Okay.
All right. I don't know if I have more myself either. So you're currently living with family and intend to until the surgeries are over?
No, right now I have been living with my mom. I've got a current tenant in there. But I do plan to be back for the holidays and then probably towards the end of the year before my copays reset, I'll do another surgery.
Okay. I saw in your letter that you have some things about title. I don't think any of those have anything to do with this. Do you think they do? How it is titled?
I'm not sure if that impacts the STR, the way that the document is written. That's probably more of a legal question, but if I change the title, but it's still the same company that owns it, so I can refinance my medical bills, I guess that's a question. Does it require a variance? Because I need to do that.
I don't know. I would assume staff has run it as the current title, Alethea, and you're the representative of Alethea.
Yeah, we just have it in a business for liability purposes.
Okay.
All right. Do we have any further questions at this time?
I just have one question. Miss Willis, do you have another residence in Inglewood?
My mom has a house in Inglewood.
Is your mom's name the same as your name?
No.
Do you have a residence at 3003 Mama?
Yes, but I'm her trustee. She's on disability.
Is that where you're currently residing?
Yes. Is that a problem?
No, it was a question of doing some of my research on this topic. The fact that you ultimately will own two houses, even though the one on Huron is in a LLC name. Obviously, you need to be a primary resident or a long-term rental. So I just was, like I said, I was just asking a question about, I saw that you owned multiple locations in Inglewood.
Yeah, it's true. But that's my mom's house and she had a stroke, so. That's the background on that, if that's helpful.
Okay. We will let you go for now then, I guess. We may have more questions by the end, but we'll let you know if we need to recall you.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks for taking time to hear this.
Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this tonight?
Randy, I've got a couple people waiting and I'll just go down the line and see who would like to speak. I'll start with Ms. Hupka. If you can unmute, did you want to speak?
There we go.
There we go.
I do not wish to speak. I am just observing tonight. Thank you.
You do not wish to speak?
That's correct.
Thank you. I've got Scott on the line. Did you want to speak, Scott?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Did you want to go on video?
Yeah, that's fine by me. Is my camera not working?
Your camera's not working.
Oh, you're kidding. This thing, hold on. Well, so am I, okay. Am I there now?
No. I
Oh,
can go-
God darn it. I'm sorry. I meant to, I've got my camera hooked up. I'm really frustrated here. Hold on just a second. Make sure I've got the right thing plugged in. Let me, you know, if you don't mind, switch around just a little bit. Okay. Hey, there I am. All right. Thank you.
Scott, I'm gonna go ahead and
Um,
swear you in. If you could raise your right hand.
Certainly.
Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that you will tell the truth in this proceeding before the Board of Adjustment and Appeals?
Yes.
Please state your name and address.
Okay. My name is Scott Gilbert. I live at 4425 South Fox Street, around the corner from the STR at Quincy in Huron. I'm here to oppose the variance request. I think the request before you isn't legitimate because it's based on the claim that 4300 South Huron Street is Miss Willis's primary residence. I don't believe that's true, and it was not proven in the manner required by ordinance. They just did not get the proper forms for it. Based on my observations and public records, I don't believe Ms. Willis has lived there at any time since it became an STR. I think her regular address, her real address is Jefferson County at 7468 West Chenango Place, which is a Littleton address, but it's in Jeffco. And nothing I've seen makes me think that 4300 South Huron is anyone's primary residence. I think it's just a short-term rental. But first, I mean, this is a board about process, right? The city's permitting process for this short-term rental didn't follow code. It just didn't. City staff never received the documentation to prove primary residence that is required by the two ordinances governing short-term rentals. That's 531-3B2, 1656E. City code says an applicant must provide the cover page of a filed state or federal income tax return showing primary residence. So, you know, Form 1040. If you read the code, there's no wiggle room in that. They've got to turn that in to meet code. Well, that didn't happen. I got that confirmed on Monday after a month of trying to get records out of the city. I got it confirmed on Monday that they simply never got that required tax form. Instead, they settled for Schedule K1, which is a form showing income or loss from a business, listing the short-term rental address, which is 4300 South Huron. But it's just not the right form. It's not what's in code. If you want to look it up, it's really, really clear. And here's the thing, it's not as if there was no opportunity, as if there was some rush so that the city couldn't get the required tax form. The short-term rental was applied for in September 2020. The permit was granted in September 2021. That's a year. That's a year in which to get the required tax form. And again, that is the cover page of a filed income tax return showing primary residence. That's what they're supposed to get. So you're being asked tonight to go along with a process that wasn't done by the book, and I frankly hope you won't do so. There are a lot of other reasons I don't believe that that's an owner-occupied house and has not been. I started paying attention to short-term rentals in 2016. And when this one around the corner from me got on Airbnb back in 2018, I started paying attention to it. And because of where it's located, which is on Quincy and Huron, which are streets I take basically anytime I go anywhere. I was thinking before this meeting, how many times a week would I go by that? And it would be about 30. And conservative guess. I go by it all the time. And it's, you know, I've never seen there, you never see the same vehicles there longer than a few months. And then there's like long unoccupied stretches. And I'm talking about from 2018 on. I'm not talking about from the time of some injury on. I mean, this is just how it's been. There's like, I've never seen a package on the porch. There have been long stretches in which if I come home in the evening or at night, no lights on at the time of day when people would be awake. And then there'll be another turn of like out-of-state cars or unfamiliar cars there for a while. And here's the thing I hope you'll consider. If you look at the 4300 South Huron Street Airbnb, if you look on the Airbnb website at the booking availability, you'll see it is always offered for rent on short notice for any length of time from 3 days to many months. And this is key. It's always a whole house rental. I don't see how that squares with an owner occupied primary residence. You know, like yesterday, I got on the website, the Airbnb website, and I did a test booking. I booked it from September 25th, which is the earliest date it's available, through the end of 2023. It's 462 straight days. All I would have needed to do to go ahead, the booking sailed through 462 straight days. All I would have needed to do to make the booking is enter a payment and click it. And so, I mean, how does that square? It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. How does that square with an owner occupied house? Ms. Willis says she'll be back in 6 months. What would she do for the last 9 months it was booked? I mean, I don't know, live in her car? It just doesn't make sense. And the reviews tell similar stories of long stretches, and it's always a whole house rental. She can't live there during these very long stretches in what is supposedly her primary residence. You know, it's Ms. Willis is, I cored the documents turned in for this permit. Her voter registration, and by the way, voter registration requires no proof of anything, zero proof. I could register to vote at 4300 South Huron Street. It's online and there's no proof required. That voter registration lists the 7468 West Chenango Place address as the mailing address. Well, 4300 South Huron has a mail slot. Why would you want your mail, if in a house you live, why would you want your mail delivered 6 blocks away to somebody else's house? The Dun and Bradstreet and BuzzFile business directories where business owners can send in their contact information shows Ms. Willis's recently dissolved company at 7468 West Chenango. As of right now, I will double check this, but I believe it is true that as of right now, Ms. Willis's profile on Airbnb still says she lives in Littleton. So, you know, after the city passed short-term rental regulations in 2020, I saw that the house was still continuing to rent without a permit. So I reported it in like fall of 2020, and it went 30-day minimum for a while, which is the standard for non-owner occupied rentals. And then I saw like the churn in vehicles was picking up again early this year. And I thought, well, that's weird, you know? So I looked and I saw that a permit had been granted last year in September 2021. And it just didn't mesh with what I was seeing, that it was a primary residence. I don't see that. So I thought, well, what kind of records would indicate residency? What kind of definitive public records indicate residency? I thought, well, court records do. And since I believe she lives in Jeffco, one day over lunch, I drove over to the Jeffco courthouse, and yeah, I hit pay dirt there. There's multiple civil filings listing her address as 7468 West Chenango, including one that she herself filed this year in February, a lawsuit she filed in February that lists her address as 7468 West Chenango Place. And then I thought the most telling document was in a lawsuit filed against Ms. Willis in December of last year, which was less than 3 months after she got her permit by a former business associate. The affidavit of return of service in that case shows that Ms. Willis was served by a process server on January 4th of this year, identified herself to the server that occurred at 7468 West Chenango Place, and the affidavit, the sworn affidavit filed in court, says that is her usual place of abode. So, oh, you know, I mean, one other thing I'll point out, this similar to 2020, when Ms. Willis continued to operate the short-term rental without a permit after the city passed its ordinance. As of now, on July 6th, she got an email from the city telling her to switch to 30-day minimum rentals while this variance process plays out, and she has not complied with that. So make what you will of my story, of what I personally have seen and look for. I'm telling you the truth, but judge that as you will. But I really hope you will look at the fact that this simply was not permitted properly. The city took a substitute tax form that is nowhere described in ordinance. The ordinance just leaves zero. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's supposed to be a tax return cover page. They never got it. I hope you will not approve this variance request unless the proper process is followed. There you go. That's my statement.
Thank you. Any questions from anybody on the board? All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Warwick, do we have other people that would like to speak on this?
Mr. Friesen, I sent you that email that we
Yes.
received. If you'd like to read that, please.
I will. I did receive an email today from Greg Williams, and he says, "Dear sirs," I presume that means all of us, "we are strongly opposed to the aforementioned variance. Our area is R1 for a reason. It is bad enough with all the poorly maintained long-term rentals. To add short-term rentals will only work to degrade the existing norms. It also takes the stability that long-term rentals provide the neighborhood. Once you provide one variance, you lose the stance to not provide one to all applicants." Greg Williams, 4590 South Huron Street. All right, so we have nobody else in the waiting room there?
We do not.
We do not?
Do not. No.
Okay. I guess I'd like to talk to the applicant again.
Hi.
Hi. So when did your injury occur?
February of 2020. It's been a long journey.
And when have you lived at this residence?
Well, I've lived at that house actually most of my life. It was originally my mom's. The whole family put down a down payment on that house for her to keep it. And when she got married, she kept it as a rental. And then she moved in and out, and not all the families always live there. So it's something we really cherish. If you drive by it, that playhouse in the backyard, my dad built for me, and I spent most of my summers there. So throughout all of my life, even when I was in college, it was considered a primary residence when I wasn't physically living there. It's something that we've always kept in the family, and I really cherish everything that Inglewood has to offer. So I don't know how to answer that question because that's my childhood home.
Any further questions? Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Do we want to hear anything further from Mr. Sampson? I guess, yeah, why don't you come back, Mr.
Yeah.
Sampson?
I have some things.
Did you have more, Ms. Willis?
I'll let Mr. Sampson address some of the issues that were brought up by one of the speakers.
Yeah, and I can speak to that. So when the STR permit had been originally approved, we had accepted that IRS document as the proof of primary residency. After it was brought to our attention that we had done this, and after discussion with the city attorney's office, we realized that that probably shouldn't have been done. Therefore, I had emailed Tiffani this week and asked her to provide what the document that was requested, the tax cover page of the 1040. And Tiffani provided both the 2020 federal 1040 tax return and the 2021 federal tax return. I also let her know in terms of her permit, it is set to expire September 22nd. And so in that, when I informed her that we would need that document if she were to get her STR permit renewed. And she did provide those documents, and I forwarded those on to the city attorney.
Okay. That answers one of my questions. Anybody else?
Oh, Eric, it's probably in the ordinance, but if the owner of the property is an entity, who is the primary resident required to be?
So it's basically the code doesn't prohibit granting an STR permit to an entity, but it does have the primary residency requirement. So even though it's in this kind of Althea LLC, there still needs to be someone at that property who is a part of that LLC who is the primary resident.
And a part of the LLC meaning what? A member? I mean, is that defined? If you don't know,
That
that's
I
fine.
don't.
I'll look at the ordinance. Okay. I have one more or two more questions for the applicant before we close up, if nobody has anything for Eric. Okay. Okay.
I think Angie froze up. We depend on internet, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
And she left us with a good stare too. Hopefully she'll be back on shortly. Wait just a minute. We shall see, I guess. Anybody else have questions in the meantime? I guess the real question Ms. Willis is, whether you actually live there or not. That's really the question at hand. So you can, I don't know if there's any way you can help us out with that. I mean, we've heard conflicting reports here, so.
My life, the last couple of years, I've been a bit of a vagabond. Mom had a stroke. I broke my ankle. Dad survived COVID on the ventilators and everything. So from an outside party, it probably does look like there's a lot going on in that house, and I understand, but it's always taken care of, and it is my home. I have personal property there. I hosted Thanksgiving there last year. I can't really say more than that. I mean,
Okay.
Life's been hard.
Understand. I don't know if we're getting Ms. Schmitz back or not, hopefully.
I would like to ask.
Take any vote.
I would like to ask one question just based off of the criteria that we're selecting from. In our criteria, it kind of lists that the property owner is kind of providing really effective means and kind of assuring goals of the regulations sought to be waived will be upheld. Since this is a temporary request, is there anything additional that you can offer in terms of being in alignment with holding the regulations in place?
I mean, if there's any issues with the rental, which there never have been, all of the neighbors have literally known me since I was like a kid riding bikes down that street. So they definitely know how to contact me. They will contact me if anything occurs. And I think that's the intent behind the short-term rentals, that, they're not bothering the neighbors. They're not creating, these, what did they call them during the meetings? Alley hotels. And that's really not the situation going on here. I'm just trying to make sure I can pay for my medical bills and doing what I got to do.
Ms. Schmitz, welcome back. You had a couple questions.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know where I got cut off, but one
You said
question
you had questions.
for the X-ray images. Can you tell us what the dates are for those?
Yes. So the initial break was in February of 2020. It's been a long journey on these surgeries and rehab.
Oh, and the second image is pins and such?
That was after the surgery, so that would have been sometime last summer. I don't know the dates. I'd have to look them up.
Okay, when I broke my leg, a few years ago, and every image I got had my name on it, other information, dates. Can you tell us why that's not on these?
I know that it's public record, and I would prefer that not be identified with anybody that doesn't have to have that information. It's
Your
I mean,
name is on the
I think
application,
it's
right?
I understand, but those images, getting out with my name on it too, and the internet, I just didn't think it was relevant. If the
So you
board needs
removed
to
your
see
name?
that, I'm happy to provide it. There's no,
So you removed information from these images?
no, they're available on the online portal through like OR images. So I have to take a screenshot of my protected information, and I thought it was relevant to show you why I'm asking for this variance.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Willis. Anything further we want to discuss, or shall we close this hearing? I will officially close the public hearing, and we can have discussion amongst ourselves about what we think need to do here.
We need a motion first, right?
Yes, I'm sorry.
I move to approve the variance for a 6-month waiver from the requirement that a short-term rental be owner-occupied for a property in the R1C zone district, which is a variance to section 5-31 4.B.2 of the Englewood Municipal Code.
Thank you. Second?
I second.
Jim? Thoughts and comments?
Like I said, I actually did some research on Arapahoe County GIS. Just real quick, and then cross-reference her name. That's when I came up with the address. That's literally 100 yards from my current residence that her name is on. Actually, that was just done in the last year and a half. And then the other resident that we're talking about, the Huron residence. Yes, she did take that, I believe, is in an LLC's name. There's just, it may have been a long-term family house. I don't believe it's that way now. If we do approve this, I would definitely say at the end of 6 months, it needs to be a permanent residence, either that or a long-term rental. We cannot do a second or a third addition to this. I just put a stop to a short-term rental, and my next door neighbor, who the same thing, came in and bought the property thinking he didn't look at the laws, didn't look at the rules, just thinking he could do what he needed to do. And so that in the city of Englewood, that needs to stop.
I think the residency requirement and the application process for that's up to the city to figure out, and based on what their testimony was regarding the forms that they have now received. I don't think that's what we're trying to base our decision on here tonight.
No, I agree. We're not like invalidating the permit or anything like that. We're just using our criteria.
Yeah, I'd kind of agree with that too. I mean, we haven't had basically the city has made the decision about whether to issue the license. The question is whether there's any reason that we shouldn't accept the 6-month period. That's really all we're talking about, I believe.
We can still bellyache over the definitions that are kind of vague in there, and I mean, we could bellyache here, but yeah, as long as we're sticking to the criterion.
No, you're right, Mr. Taylor. Absolutely.
So getting to the criteria, I guess since we kind of have conflicting testimony, I'm looking at as, was the case made by the applicant, and there's credibility issues for me. I mean, this has been a long, this injury goes back quite a ways. If mother is moving in with mother is required for transportation, then I don't really understand why it's required if mother lives so close, why she couldn't provide transportation from a different place in Englewood. I don't know that, like, based on the documents I've seen, I'm convinced that the information needed to convince me of the necessity has been shown. So that's where I'm struggling.
Yeah, I'd kind of echo that too. I mean, it's hard to tell.
I mean, I continue to read our criteria that we have in place, and I struggle with the third criteria of the effective means, the alternative means being presented by the owner to meet the goals of the regulations sought to be waived. I mean, unless the only reason that criteria would apply or could be assured is by the fact that it's a temporary waiver.
Yeah, the way I was looking at that the essential character won't change if this is just a temporary waiver. And it sounds like some of the alternate means that I heard in the testimony were just that everyone knows how to contact her if there is an issue. And not just through a platform.
I agree.
Any other thoughts, or do you want to vote on it? Hearing none, I guess we'll call for a vote then. Ms. Warwick, could you start us out here?
Mr. Taylor,
I voted yes, that the first criterion is met based on what we heard about this being a special circumstance due to injury. Also that the second criterion is met because this is just a temporary waiver. And so it won't weaken the statute based on what the city has testified to, and that the third criteria is met, that it sounds like alternative means is available to ensure the goals are met of the title and the chapter.
Ms. Schmitz,
I vote no. I'm just not convinced by the evidence presented that the special circumstance exists. For the second, just to cover the second criteria, I don't think it would weaken the general purpose. And third criteria, I understand the temporary nature. It's the first that I found is not met.
Mr. Rager,
I voted yes for the reasons stated, and then I wanted to add that only due to the waiver being temporary in nature.
Mr. Thompson,
I vote yes for the reasons stated.
Mr. Friesen,
Having a hard time with it, but I will take the benefit of the applicants since it's short term and vote yes for the reasons stated.
motion passes 4-1.
All right. I guess it's staff's choice, I believe is where we are. Anything coming up that we need to know about?
We do have a variance in October.
Okay,
Eric, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything.
all right. What about the attorney? Victoria?
Hi there, good evening. So just, I don't have anything specific, but we are in the process of getting training materials together for various boards and commissions. And if there's anything specific that this board would like the city attorney's office to present on, please feel free to reach out and let me know, and we can certainly tailor material that would be helpful.
Okay. What about board members? Anything we need to talk about?
Well, since our chairman's not here, I think he owes us lunch.
Yeah, I think maybe we should just invite ourselves to his house for a certain date.
There we go.
Promises were made.
I know.
Yeah.
And the summer's almost over.
Right. We need to be outdoors with COVID and all that, right? All right, I guess that might be it. We'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.